When I was a young officer, I had to give a speech, kind of my first one of these things. And so my commander gave me some great advice. He said, anytime you're speaking to an audience, you have a job to do, and that's to give, hey, Pastor, that's to give knowledge, share some information, entertain a little bit. He said, but your audience has a job too, and that's to listen to what you have to say. He said, now the goal is you to finish your work before your audience finishes theirs. So hopefully I'll be brief today. I appreciate the rapid fire format here. My attention span without a controller or a keyboard in my hand is pretty short, so 10 minutes is just about enough. On behalf of General Singh, the Adjutant General of the State of Maryland, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to attend and make some brief remarks on the role of National Guard in cybersecurity. Colonel Shawn N, Bratton, Commander of the 175th Cyber Operations Group, Maryland Air National Guard. Maryland National Guard has a proud history in cybersecurity mission space, and the need for expertise in this mission has grown. So has the commitment from Maryland. Today, Maryland has cyber experts in both the Army and Air National Guard. We have recently stood up the 175th Cyber Operations Group, my unit, which will grow to over 300 personnel. This fall, we have units already being mobilized to support U.S. Cyber Command's efforts in the Cyber Mission Force, and this is our core federal mission. However, as you know, and as we've discussed today, the National Guard's mission extends well beyond Title X taskings. And perhaps more important and more relevant to this discussion is our service to the state. Today, the use of cyber in support of the state is a realistic proposition. Indeed, we've already done it. In 2015, at the request of the governor and under the direction of the Adjutant General, Maryland mobilized cyber forces in state active duty during the period of unrest in Baltimore. If and when the governor tasks my unit again, and let's say that tasking is in support of the power infrastructure, there are several things that we learned during last year's events that will be specifically relevant to upcoming operations. Often when we discuss crisis, we quickly leap to discussions of actions at the federal level. This makes sense. There's incredible expertise in DHS, DOD, and other federal agencies that can be brought to bear in any major crisis. And I'm sure that any significant coordinated attack against our power infrastructure, the talent in these agencies will be needed to resolve the situation. But in my almost 30 years in the National Guard, I've found that the crisis usually starts smaller, locally, and at the state level. I've experienced the governor almost always looks inside the state for solutions before requesting assistance from outside, even in a crisis that extends beyond the state's borders, like this would. I've been to the planning events and exercises at the state level that make me feel certain the National Guard of my unit will be called upon again to support Maryland in defensive cyber operations. So quite simply, I must be prepared to support. But cyber support doesn't necessarily mean putting my operators onto someone else's network. It's difficult for me to imagine any organization inviting my forces directly onto their proprietary network. It's just unlikely to happen. A key component in cyber defense, and quite frankly in any defensive operation, is familiarity with the terrain. Doesn't matter if you're in Iraq, Afghanistan, or on a network, familiarity with terrain is key to defensive operations. My operators arriving on a new network do not have the familiarity with that cyber terrain that exists within a company's own cybersecurity professionals. In most cases, placing my operators on an unfamiliar network during a crisis would not be the best use of those forces. A far more likely and valuable contribution could be in the advise and assist role. Last May, when civil unrest went online and malware was made available for use to attack Maryland, state of Maryland networks, the National Guard cyber operators conducted the analysis of that malware and made the results available within the state. The information provided included a breakdown of how to recognize malware's presence and advice on how to mitigate its effects on your network. One of the aspects that made our operation successful last year was our ongoing partnership with industry. It was industry who provided the initial indications of online unrest. We received email tippers from our partners. Our ongoing partnerships that were formed during the various exercises over the past years led to a relationship, and that relationship led in part to mission success. This is an area where the National Guard excels. Most of my personnel work in the cybersecurity industry. More importantly, my personnel tend to remain in place for long periods of time. And this enables these partnerships, relationships, and over time for trust to develop. We found this to be critical last year, and in the event of a cyber attack against the power grid, it is these relationships that will allow effective interaction between state leadership, the industry, and the National Guard. As we reviewed our actions following our cyber mobilization, it became clear that we needed to improve the flow of information. We needed a better understanding of the players involved and a better way to disseminate critical data. If I have an understanding of the threat, if I have access to intelligence, if I can offer advice and assistance on how to mitigate it, I need to get that information into the hands of the network operators, regardless of whether they are my military personnel or the industry's own. It is the ability to share information, not just gather it during an event, which will help us all succeed. In order to do this effectively, there are hurdles to overcome with regard to security and proprietary information. Relationships and trust will help along these lines, but more must be done. One way to get at this problem is through shared resources, and in particular, through sharing our people. Our personnel are the best, we should share them. I recruit and train cyber operators. In some cases, I'll spend up to 3 years training an operator before I put them on mission for Cyber Command. These operators receive the best the Air Force and U.S. Cyber Command have to offer. They have a security clearance, access to intelligence, and relationships across the DoD's cyber portfolio. Imagine if this operator, my operator, is also working within industry or a state agency. Imagine if in this scenario she worked as a cybersecurity professional in the power industry. In some cases this happens today, but it happens by accident. We should do this deliberately. Companies should seek out members of the National Guard, or even better, we should recruit and hire them jointly. I'll take them, train them, ensure they can hold a security clearance. I'll make them the best in the world at cyberspace operations. Industry should hire them, allow them to attend training from time to time, release them for exercises, training, and Title X operations. We must carefully think through the barriers to ensure threat information and mitigation techniques can be quickly shared at the state and local levels. In order for this to be effective, we must establish policy to allow a single individual to use both the knowledge and skills learned in the military as well as in their private sector experience. In a given situation, my members should be able to rapidly convert in place from citizen to soldier or airman. This requires clear policy guidance and pre-planning. Relationships, trust, familiarity with cyber terrain all get solved rather quickly if the human in the loop works for both of us. Information flow accelerates and reaches all parties as we eliminate the distance between our cyber defenders. Maryland looks forward to leading in this construct. Major General Singh and the Maryland National Guard are working every day to enhance the cyber capabilities within the state, to ensure we have the best trained personnel and that we're ready to go if the governor calls. We're developing a cyber center of excellence to continue to build thinkers in the mission space, leaders who can tackle complex problems and have access to advanced technical capabilities, leaders who can teach others and share information. Maryland stands strong today in cyberspace mission area. I look forward to continuing the growth of this capability within the state. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak today.